For as much as we all love cruising, and it is pretty great, there are some things that, if you are being honest, you just have to call BS on. I'll get into the details right now and give it to you straight, and that includes things that are way different in marketing versus reality, and some things that are absolutely 100% true. Let's dive in. The first thing that anyone finds out when they go shopping for a cruise is those headline prices you see. Yeah, that's not what you're going to pay. Head to any website that sells cruises, and the first thing you see are dirt cheap headline fares. I'm talking a few $100 to sail for an entire week. Prices are to the point that it actually seems like it would be cheaper to live on a cruise ship instead of living on land. Unlike airfare, which is now required to include all the cost of a ticket up front due to Department of Transportation rules, cruise fares don't have that same rule. So that headline price is really just the start of what you'll pay. First off, rooms are sold at double occupancy. Right off the bat, you can double the price of the cruise fare. And on top of that, you have port fees and taxes, which are hundreds of dollars more, and gratuities, which technically aren't required on your cruise, but let's be honest, they essentially are. Now, cruising still ends up being a good value for what you get, but those dirt cheap headline fares you see advertised, yes, they are possible, but that's not anywhere close to what you'll actually pay. Okay, this might be my favorite one from the cruise lines just because it is such a huge difference between what you see on the websites and what the reality actually is on board. Go to a cruise website, look at the marketing photos they show. Particularly, check out the ones that have people in them. Do you notice anything unusual? There's no one else around. All the photos seem to show a couple or a family having the time of their life, and there is not another person to be seen. It doesn't matter if they are on a beach or on the ship, it's like they are in their own private paradise. Anyone that has cruised knows that that is not the case. After all, there are 4,000 to 5,000 people on the ship. Sure, there are empty spots around, but there are also places packed with people. And that empty beach, it actually looks more like this. It reminds me a lot of car commercials where they never show that beautiful new car stuck in traffic or with other cars on the road. I don't know if I've ever seen a cruise sail that isn't accompanied by some sort of countdown timer or language about being a limited time or ending soon. Now, I'm not saying that sails never change or end, but most of the time, those deadlines seem, well, like they aren't really deadlines. Here's one email from Royal Caribbean that was sent offering $650 instant savings plus 30% off every cruise with the headline Final Hours. Well, look at what you see just a few days later. It's a notice that the same deal is now extended. Now, I'm not trying to pick on one cruise line. Honestly, you see it everywhere. Here's MSC with a red alert that the chance to book at $129 ends today, followed a week later with you have more time to cruise from $129. Don't get me wrong, there is a lot to like about the port areas in the Caribbean. I'm talking specifically about those enclosed areas that you pass through from the ship that has all of the shops. These spots, they cater to cruise passengers. There are shops, restaurants, and in some cases even pools or beaches to hang out where you can have an entire day without having to leave here. But these areas are also not authentic at all. First, you almost always have to walk through a duty-free shop to get into the port. You know, just like you imagine when you visit any exotic port city. And from there, everything in port caters to cruise passengers. So it's like you're really visiting an extension of the cruise ship, not an actual real place. Now, can you have an awesome time here? Of course, but you also can't really say that you visited a place if you didn't go outside the port gates. You knew that this one was going to make the list because, frankly, it's one of the biggest frustrations among many passengers, and I'm gonna have to call bull on it. If you aren't familiar, just about every cruise line charges a daily fee to every passenger on board, typically around $16 a day per person. These charges add up, meaning hundreds in extra dollars for your trip. Now that money, it goes to the crew that provides service to you, like the room attendant and the waiters. These folks, they work their tails off, often literally thousands of miles from home for months at a time. Them being compensated is not the issue. The issue is that this charge just isn't folded into the cruise fare. So sure, you get a cheap headline fare, but then it's double occupancy. Then it's the port fees and the taxes, and then it's gratuities on top of that. Technically, the charge is optional, but for most people, it's just another extra fee they see that isn't already booked into the cruise fare. Now, if you watch the first portion of this video, you might get the wrong impression on cruising. Yes, there are some things that are BS in my book, but then there are others that absolutely are not. In fact, they may even be better than advertised. First up is the value in cruising. Sure, you will pay more than those low headline fares once everything is all added up, but even what you do pay, it is a great deal for what you get. Look around and you can find 7-day cruises for 2 people that top out at less than $1,000 in total, even after accounting for double occupancy and port fees and taxes. Even at higher prices, you're still getting meals, entertainment, and transportation to some of the most beautiful spots in the world for less than what it costs many people to live day-to-day life back home. And to compare the cost of a cruise to putting together a similar trip with flights, hotel, food, and entertainment, there's simply no comparison. I'm not necessarily saying that cruising is cheap, but as far as value, it is really tough to beat. Another area that absolutely lives up to the hype and even beats it is cruising Alaska. Put simply, sailing to Alaska gives you an experience that you will not get anywhere else. The state is a remote part of the planet. If you flew into Alaska to visit, you'd be relatively constricted in getting around. That's why the ship is such a great way to travel there. On a cruise to Alaska, mountains are everywhere, and I'm not talking miles and miles in the distance. They literally line the channels that the ship sails. From the time you wake up until the time you go to bed, there's always something to see. And the ports of call are also something that makes Alaska really special. Caribbean and Bahamian ports, they're nice, but they are almost always built around serving cruise ships, giving a very touristy feel. Places like Sitka and Juneau also have other industries as well. They are real towns that welcome tourists instead of tourist towns built solely for cruise passengers. In short, Alaska and its natural beauty, they are second to none, and there is no easier way to experience the area than on a cruise ship. One final thing that's absolutely true about cruising and cannot be overstated is the size of a modern ship and the number of things to do on them. If you've never sailed on a cruise before, you really don't have a good idea of just how large these ships are until you were standing next to one of them. And if you have sailed before, then you know exactly what I am talking about. They talk about it being a city at sea, and no, that is not overstating it. And with that size comes a lot of things to do. Modern ships, they can have upwards of 20 restaurants and seemingly as many bars. The entertainment on some ships is everything from literal Broadway shows brought to the ship to water shows with high divers. Activities can be everything from ziplining to riding go-karts to literal roller coasters on the ship. If there's one area that's not overblown, it is what is possible on today's mega ships. Now, before I go, I hope that you'll give your 2 cents. What do you think is bull in cruising, and what do you think doesn't actually get enough credit? Let everybody know in the comments below. I also hope that you'll subscribe to this channel or visit Cruzely.com for more on everything cruising. Until next time, happy sailing.